They concealed their advanced weapons. Humans perfected them in a single night. The conference room smelled like ozone and fear. 7 species sat around the circular table while accusations flew faster than plasma bolts. Ambassador David watched the chaos unfold with the patience of someone who had survived budget meetings with actual politicians. Beside him, Helen scribbled notes on her datapad while Boris kept his arms crossed and his expression neutral. Gorath slammed his clawed fist onto the table hard enough to make the holographic projectors flicker. His scales had turned that deep crimson color that meant he was done with diplomacy. "My people developed this technology over 6 centuries, he hissed. "You have no right to demand we share it with species who still use chemical propellants." The avian representative Rilla ruffled her feathers in indignation. Her species had joined the Galactic Council 3,000 years before humans even invented the wheel. "Your weapons nearly started a war last week," she chirped. "Either you share the specifications or we sanction your entire trade network." David raised one hand slowly. The gesture was so human and simple that it cut through the alien shouting like a knife. "Perhaps we could all take a moment to calm down," he suggested. His voice carried that particular tone of someone who had absolutely no stake in the argument but wanted everyone to stop yelling. Gorath turned his massive head toward the human delegation. His eyes were the color of molten copper and currently filled with contempt. "And what would you know about advanced weapons, tool user?" he sneered. "Your species still fights with metal slugs and chemical explosives." Helen looked up from her notes. Her expression remained polite, but her eyes had gone sharp. "We know enough to recognize an unstable plasma containment field when we see one," she said quietly. "That design you showed has a 40% energy loss in the magnetic bottle." The room went silent. Gorath's scales shifted from crimson to purple. "You dare critique technology your primitive mind cannot comprehend," he roared. David touched Helen's arm gently. She nodded and went back to her notes. "No disrespect intended," David said smoothly. "My colleague simply has an eye for engineering inefficiencies. It's a human trait." Gorath stood to his full height of nearly 3 meters. His claws scraped against the floor. "Plating, I will show you primitive," he snarled. He activated the holographic display at the center of the table. A 3-dimensional schematic appeared showing a rifle design that made even the other aliens lean forward with interest. The weapon was elegant in its complexity, energy coils wrapped around a central plasma chamber while targeting systems lined the barrel assembly. Gorath let the image rotate for exactly 30 seconds before he deactivated it. "That is what real technology looks like," he said. "Something your species will never possess." He stormed out of the conference room with 2 of his aides trailing behind him. The door hissed shut with enough force to rattle the frame. The remaining species representatives began arguing immediately about trade violations and technology treaties. David stood and cleared his throat. "Perhaps a 24-hour cooling-off period would be beneficial," he suggested. "We can reconvene tomorrow when tempers have settled." Rilla laughed. The sound was like breaking glass. "Cooling-off period," she repeated. "How very human. You don't even understand what you witnessed today. That weapon design represents technology decades beyond anything in your arsenal." "Then we certainly need time to process what we saw," David replied with a slight smile. He gathered his datapad and gestured for his team to follow. Helen and Boris stood along with 2 other human engineers named Rachel and Paul. They walked through the pristine corridors of the Council space station in silence. Other species passed them without a second glance. Humans were so new to galactic society that most aliens still saw them as curiosities rather than threats. The delegation reached their assigned quarters, which were modest compared to the suites given to older council members. As soon as the door sealed behind them, Helen pulled out her datapad and began sketching. Her fingers moved across the screen with practiced precision. "The plasma containment system was the biggest problem," she said. "But the targeting computer had at least 3 redundant systems that added weight without improving accuracy." Boris grunted. You got all that from 30 seconds, he asked. 12 seconds actually, Helen replied. The rest of the time I was calculating the power requirements. She turned her datapad around to show the others. A complete schematic of Gorath's weapon glowed on the screen. Every component was labeled with technical specifications and potential improvements. David leaned against the wall and rubbed his temples. How accurate is your memory? He asked. Photographic, Helen said. Useful for engineering exams, even more useful for reverse engineering alien weapons apparently. Paul laughed. So what are we going to do with this information? He asked. Gorath will lose his mind if he finds out we memorized his precious design. David was quiet for a long moment. He looked at each member of his team in turn. These were some of Earth's best engineers, and they had all volunteered for this diplomatic mission knowing it would be thankless work. We're going to improve it, he finally said. Rachel raised her eyebrows. Improve it how? She asked. Every way we can think of, David replied. I want a working prototype by morning. He pulled up the station directory on his datapad. There's a fabrication lab on Deck 7. I'll request access for a cultural demonstration. Boris grinned. Cultural demonstration of what exactly? He asked. Human engineering philosophy, David said. His smile was predatory. Gorath thinks we're primitive tool users. Let's show him what human tools can do when properly motivated. Helen was already pulling up material specifications and power requirements. We'll need access to the station's computer systems for calculations, she said. We'll use our own computers, David replied. No hacking, no stolen data, nothing they can accuse us of except being observant. He activated his communicator and requested the fabrication lab. The station administrator approved the request within minutes. They think we want to show off Earth trinkets, Boris said. David nodded. Let them think that until morning. He looked at his team. We have 11 hours before the council reconvenes. Let's make them count. Helen saved her schematic and stood. Where do we start? She asked. With the plasma containment system, David replied. If we can improve the efficiency by even 20%, we'll have their attention. He headed toward the door. And if we can do better than that, we'll change everything. The fabrication lab hummed with energy as Helen spread the holographic schematic across 3 workstations. Her fingers danced through the display, separating components into manageable sections. Boris had already claimed the weapon's testing chamber in the corner while Rachel examined the station's available materials inventory. We have a problem, Paul announced from his workstation. The plasma generation system requires iridium composite alloys. The station only has industrial-grade materials. Helen didn't look up from her calculations. Then we use carbon fiber composites from Earth manufacturing techniques, she replied. Stronger, lighter, and we can weave them in the station's fabricators. Boris whistled low. You want to replace 600 years of alien metallurgy with carbon fiber? He asked. Not replace, Helen corrected. Improve. She pulled up a comparison chart showing tensile strength ratios. Their alloys are designed for brute force containment. Carbon fiber weaving can create a magnetic lattice that guides the plasma more efficiently. David circled the workstations, checking each team member's progress. His military background had taught him that successful operations required constant communication. Rachel, what's our power situation? He asked. Their power cells are massive, Rachel replied. She held up a holographic model of Gorath's energy pack. This thing weighs 14 kilos and provides enough energy for maybe 40 shots. Human battery technology, David suggested. Rachel grinned. Already on it. She manipulated the hologram, shrinking it to a third of its original size. If we use lithium polymer matrices with graphene conductors, we can get the same output at 4 kilos, maybe even extend it to 160 shots. Paul shook his head in amazement. Gorath's people spent centuries developing that power system, he muttered. They were thinking about raw power, Helen said. Humans think about efficiency because we had to. She brought up another schematic showing the plasma chamber. Look at this containment field. It's using constant magnetic pressure which wastes energy fighting against itself. Boris leaned over her shoulder. What's the alternative? He asked. Pulsed magnetic containment, Helen replied. Her fingers traced lines through the hologram. We use rotating field generators that activate in sequence. The plasma never touches the chamber walls, but we use 60% less energy maintaining the field. David pulled up a chair and sat heavily. Exhaustion was starting to show on all their faces, but none of them suggested stopping. How did you figure that out? He asked Helen. She laughed. Arc welders, she said. I used to work in a shipyard during university summers. We used pulsed magnetic fields to contain welding arcs. Same principle, just scaled up and weaponized. Humans have been solving problems with whatever we had available for 200,000 years, David said quietly. Gorath's people had unlimited resources and time. They never learned to innovate under pressure. Rachel finished her power cell redesign and moved to the targeting systems. This is almost insulting, she announced. Their targeting computer requires 3 full seconds to acquire and lock onto a target. 3 seconds is an eternity in combat, Boris said. He had pulled up military documentation from Earth's various conflicts. Human soldiers can aim and fire in under a second. Because we use mechanical and electronic systems in parallel, Rachel said. She began redesigning the targeting array. They rely entirely on computer processing. If we add gyroscopic stabilization and basic iron sights as backup, we can get lock time down to 0.4 seconds. Paul was working on the barrel assembly. I'm seeing the same pattern everywhere, he said. They over-engineered everything. This barrel has 7 different cooling systems when 3 would work better. Redundancy isn't always reliability, David observed. Sometimes it's just more things that can break. Helen stood and stretched. Her back cracked loudly in the quiet lab. I need to test the plasma chamber design, she said. The math looks good, but I want to see it work. Boris gestured to the testing chamber. I've got it set up, he said. We can run simulations without actually firing anything. They gathered around the testing station. Helen uploaded her redesigned plasma chamber specs. The computer ran through thousands of calculations in seconds before displaying results. The efficiency rating showed 96% compared to Gorath's original 60%. That can't be right, Paul said. Check your math. Helen ran the simulation 3 more times. Each result confirmed the 96% efficiency. It's right, she said quietly. We just improved 6 centuries of alien research by 36% in 4 hours. The team stood in silence, absorbing what they had accomplished. Rachel was the first to speak. What happens when we show them this? She asked. They're going to lose their minds, Boris replied. He was grinning like he had just won a poker game. David held up his hand. We're not doing this to embarrass anyone, he said firmly. We're doing this to prove that cooperation beats secrecy. He looked at each team member. Gorath hid his technology because he was afraid someone would steal it. We're going to give our improvements away freely. That's actually crazy, Paul said. We could patent this stuff. Earth could make billions. Or we could make allies, David countered. Which do you think has more long-term value? Helen saved all their designs and began assembling a presentation file. We should build at least 1 working prototype, she suggested. Demonstrations are more convincing than simulations. Boris checked the chronometer. We have 6 hours until the council reconvenes, he said. If we work straight through, we can have 3 prototypes ready. Then let's build them, David said. He activated the fabrication systems. Machines whirred to life throughout the lab. Rachel, you take power systems. Paul, you handle the barrel and cooling. Helen, the plasma chamber is yours. Boris and I will work on the targeting and assembly. The next 5 hours passed in a blur of activity. Carbon fiber composites wove themselves into complex lattices. Power cells were assembled molecule by molecule. Plasma chambers took shape under Helen's careful supervision. The team worked with the synchronized efficiency of people who understood both their own roles and how those roles fit together. At 0400 hours station time, Boris Test fired the first prototype into a target array. The plasma bolt burned through 3 meters of reinforced steel before the safety systems shut it down. The weapon showed 0 signs of stress or overheating. Helen ran diagnostics. All systems nominal, she reported. Efficiency is holding at 96%, targeting lock achieved in 0.3 seconds. Power cell reading shows capacity for 170 shots. David allowed himself a small smile. "Build 2 more, he ordered. "And then clean up this lab. I want everything documented and ready to present." As dawn approached by station time, the human team had 3 fully functional weapons and a comprehensive presentation. They looked exhausted but satisfied. David sent a message to all council representatives requesting their presence in the demonstration hall. Boris held up one of the improved rifles. "Gorath hid his homework," he said. "We just turned it in with extra credit." The demonstration hall filled slowly as alien representatives arrived in various states of confusion and irritation. Rilla was first, her feathers still ruffled from being awakened early. Gorath arrived last with his scales showing patterns of deep suspicion. The station administrator hovered near the entrance looking worried about whatever chaos the humans might unleash. David stood at the podium wearing his formal diplomatic uniform. Behind him sat a covered table while Helen, Boris, Rachel, and Paul waited in the observation gallery. The room held enough weapons testing equipment to satisfy even the most skeptical species. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," David began. His voice carried clearly in the acoustically designed space. "I know this is unusual, but I believe you'll find it worthwhile." "This had better be important," Gorath rumbled. "I was in the middle of crucial communications with my homeworld." David smiled politely. "I assure you it is." He gestured to the covered table. "Yesterday's summit was quite educational for the human delegation. We learned a great deal about galactic weapons technology." Rilla shifted on her perch. "You learned nothing," she said dismissively. "You witnessed a brief glimpse of technology far beyond your comprehension." "Perhaps," David agreed, "which is why we spent the evening studying." He removed the cover from the table, revealing 3 sleek energy rifles. They were visibly similar to Gorath's design, but clearly modified. The alien representatives leaned forward almost unconsciously. Gorath stood so quickly his chair toppled backward. "How did you access my schematics?" he demanded. His voice shook with rage. "Those files are encrypted with military-grade security." "We didn't access anything," David replied calmly. "We simply observed your holographic presentation yesterday. You displayed the design for 30 seconds. That was sufficient." The room erupted in multiple languages. Species representatives spoke over each other demanding explanations. The station administrator was frantically checking security logs. Gorath's scales had gone from suspicious patterns to outright furious crimson. David waited for the noise to die down. "I understand your concern," he said, "which is why I've asked the station administrator to verify that no human accessed any classified systems." He looked at the administrator. "Would you confirm this, please?" The administrator, a crystalline being named Threll, displayed data across the room's screens. "Human delegation accessed only public databases and the open fabrication lab," Threll confirmed. "No security breaches detected, no encrypted files accessed." "Then how?" Gorath began. His voice was dangerously quiet. "My colleague Helen has exceptional memory," David said. Helen stood in the gallery and gave a small wave. "She observed your holographic display and recreated the schematic from memory." Rilla's head cocked to one side. "You memorized military specifications in 30 seconds?" she asked. Her tone had shifted from dismissive to calculating. 12 seconds actually," Helen called down. "The remaining 18 I spent noting the inefficiencies in the design." Gorath's roar shook the room. "Inefficiencies," he bellowed. "My people spent 600 years perfecting that weapon." "And we spent 11 hours improving it," David said. He activated the holographic displays. Side-by-side comparisons appeared showing Gorath's original design next to the human modifications. "If you'll direct your attention to the plasma containment system." Helen descended from the gallery and took position at the display controls. "The original design uses constant magnetic pressure," she explained. Her tone was purely educational without any hint of superiority. "This creates significant energy loss as the fields work against each other. Our modification uses pulsed magnetic containment, reducing energy requirements by 36% while increasing plasma stability." She moved through each system methodically. Power cells that were 70% smaller but lasted 4 times longer. Targeting systems that locked in a third of a second instead of 3. Barrel assemblies that were 30% lighter without sacrificing durability. Cooling systems that were simpler and more reliable. The alien representatives sat in stunned silence. Even Gorath had stopped interrupting. The numbers were irrefutable. Every single modification improved upon his species' centuries of research. "I don't believe it," Rilla said finally. "Simulations can be manipulated. Show us proof." Boris stood and walked to the firing range. "Happy to oblige," he said. He picked up one of the modified rifles and checked its power. Reading, original specifications called for maximum effective range of 500 meters. "Let's see what we can do." He activated the targeting system. The weapon hummed to life with a sound that was noticeably quieter than standard energy rifles. Boris aimed at a target 500 meters downrange. The lock confirmation came so fast several aliens gasped. He fired. The plasma bolt burned perfectly through the center target. "Impressive," Gorath admitted grudgingly. "But that proves nothing. My design could do the same." Boris smiled. "Watch." He adjusted his aim to 750 meters. Another perfect hit. 1,000 meters. Another perfect hit. He continued firing for 2 full minutes. The weapon never wavered, never overheated, never showed any sign of degradation. The testing equipment confirmed every shot. Distance, accuracy, power consumption, thermal management. All readings exceeded Gorath's original specifications by significant margins. After 50 shots, Boris set the rifle down. It was barely warm to the touch. "Your design required cooling after 12 shots," Helen said quietly. "Ours can fire continuously for at least 200. Gorath sat heavily. His scales had shifted to a color none of the humans had seen before, something between purple and gray. "How long did this take you?" he asked. David checked his chronometer. 11 hours and 40 minutes, he replied. "We stopped for a meal break around midnight." The demonstration hall was silent except for the hum of the equipment. Dulnar, a peaceful species representative known for scientific pursuits, spoke for the first time. "You accomplished in one night what should have taken decades," he said. "How is this possible?" "Human history," David replied. "We come from a world that tried very hard to kill us. We learned to innovate or die. We learned to look at any tool and ask how it could be better." He gestured to the weapons. "Gorath's people had the luxury of time and resources. They built something good. We're used to building something better with whatever we can find." Rilla was studying the specifications with intense focus. "These improvements aren't just incremental," she said. "You've fundamentally reimagined the core systems." "Because we question the basic assumptions," Helen explained. "Gorath's people asked how to contain plasma with magnetic force. We asked whether constant force was the best approach. They asked how to target accurately with computers. We asked why not use multiple targeting systems in parallel." Paul spoke up from the gallery. "Every human engineer is taught to question why before accepting how," he said. "It's the foundation of our education system." David picked up one of the rifles. "We're not sharing this to embarrass anyone," he said. His tone was sincere. "We're sharing it because we believe knowledge should be free." He placed the rifle on the table. These specifications are available to every species in this room. No patents, no restrictions, no fees. Gorath stared at David. You would just give this away, he asked. Yes, David replied simply. Because that's what humans do. We survived by sharing knowledge. We'll thrive among the stars the same way. The council chambers hummed with tension as species representatives gathered for an emergency session. Humans were notably absent from this meeting. David had excused his delegation to give the other species space to discuss what they had witnessed. Gorath sat with his arms crossed while Rilla preened her feathers nervously. We need to address the human problem, declared P-Frem, a junior delegate from a militaristic species. His mandibles clicked with agitation. They observed classified military technology and reverse-engineered it in less than 12 hours. Technically, they observed publicly displayed technology, Dulnar corrected. His species valued precision in language. Gorath chose to demonstrate his weapon in an open forum. Gorath's scales flushed dark. I displayed it for 30 seconds to make a point, he protested. I never imagined anyone could memorize complete military specifications from a brief hologram. That's the issue, Rilla said quietly. We didn't imagine it either. She pulled up data on her personal display. I've been reviewing human history since the demonstration. Their entire technological development is based on observation and rapid improvement. They went from basic flight to orbital spacecraft in 60 years. Threll, the station administrator, projected additional data. Human patent databases show they file for technological improvements at rates 300% higher than any known species, the crystalline being reported. Their culture actively rewards finding better ways to accomplish tasks. Which means every species here with hidden weapons programs is now vulnerable, P-Frem said. If humans can see technology once and improve it overnight, no military secret is safe. Dulnar leaned forward. Perhaps we're approaching this incorrectly, he suggested. The humans didn't steal anything. They observed, learned, and improved. Isn't that the foundation of scientific progress? Scientific progress is meant to take generations, Gorath muttered, not 11 hours. Why? Dulnar challenged. Because that's how long it takes us. He gestured to the chamber. Gorath, your people spent 6 centuries on that weapon design. The humans identified problems you never saw because you stopped questioning your own assumptions. Rilla was reading through human educational materials. This is fascinating, she said. Human engineers are explicitly taught to question established methods. They have a concept called disruptive innovation that they consider desirable. It is desirable, Dulnar argued. We've been hoarding technology for political advantage for so long we forgot the point was to advance. He pulled up economic projections. If we continue restricting knowledge, our collective technological growth rate will remain at 0.3% annually. If we adopted human methods of open innovation, projections suggest growth rates above 5%. Those numbers are speculative, P-Frem protested. They're conservative, Dulnar countered. They don't account for synergies between species with different specializations. He looked around the chamber. We've been playing political games with technology. Humans just proved those games are holding us back. Gorath was silent for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. My pride was wounded, he admitted. 600 years of my people's work surpassed in one night by a species we considered primitive. His scales shifted to a more neutral color. But the modifications were legitimate. Everything the humans did was based on sound engineering principles. Principles my people should have discovered centuries ago. The question isn't whether humans can improve our technology, Rilla said. Clearly they can. The question is what we do about it. Restrict their access to advanced technology, P-Frem suggested. How? Dulnar asked. They improved weapons technology from a 30-second observation. Do you propose we ban them from all council facilities? From observing any technology? That's not practical or enforceable. A new voice entered the conversation, Ambassador Krell from a distant system. What if we worked with them instead of against them? She proposed. The humans offered their improvements freely. Perhaps we should take them at their word that they value cooperation. You want to give humans access to more technology, P-Frem demanded. I want to create partnerships where their innovative thinking combines with our specialized knowledge, Krell clarified. My species develops medical technology. I would very much like to know what human engineers could do with our diagnostic systems. Dulnar nodded enthusiastically. Exactly my thinking. He began outlining a proposal on the chamber displays. Establish a galactic engineering consortium, shared research facilities where species can collaborate. Humans bring their innovation methodology. We bring our specialized knowledge. Everyone benefits. This is madness, P-Frem protested. You want to tear down centuries of technology protection protocols. Those protocols were created to maintain political advantages, Rilla said. She had been quiet during the debate, but now spoke with authority. I opposed human membership in the council because I believed they were too primitive. She ruffled her feathers in what humans would recognize as embarrassment. I was wrong. They're not primitive. They're efficient. There's a difference. Gorath stood. I will support this consortium on one condition, he said. Humans lead the engineering review divisions. My people will provide our weapons research freely, but only if the humans promise to question every assumption we've made. That's remarkably progressive of you, Krell observed. It's pragmatic, Gorath replied. Humans will reverse engineer everything we have eventually. Better to work with them and maintain some influence over the process. Dulnar was already drafting formal language for the proposal. We should invite the human delegation back for the vote, he suggested. The council voted to recall David and his team. When the humans entered, they looked uncertain. David approached the speaker's podium carefully. Is there a problem? He asked. Dulnar smiled. His species didn't have facial expressions humans recognized, but his posture conveyed friendliness. We have a proposal, he said. The council wishes to establish a galactic engineering consortium dedicated to collaborative innovation. He paused. We would like humans to lead it. David looked at his team. Helen, Boris, Rachel, and Paul all wore expressions of shock. That's unexpected, David said finally. You proved that shared innovation produces better results than isolated research, Rilla said. We've been hoarding knowledge like dragons hoarding gold. You reminded us that progress requires cooperation. We would accept under certain conditions, David said carefully. All species must benefit equally. No technology monopolies, no restricting knowledge for political gain. Those are acceptable terms, Krell agreed. In fact, they're exactly what we need. Gorath approached David. I owe you an apology, the large alien said. I called your species primitive. I was protecting my own ego. He extended his clawed hand in the human gesture of peace. Will you help my people learn to question our assumptions? David shook Gorath's hand. Only if your people help us understand the technologies we haven't discovered yet. He looked at the assembled council. We're good at improving things. We still have a lot to learn about the basics. The vote was called. 5 species voted in favor. 2 abstained. None opposed. The Galactic Engineering Consortium was established with humanity as the lead species. As the council session ended, Helen approached David. We just changed everything, she said quietly. We showed them that cooperation beats secrecy, David replied. Now we have to prove it works long-term. 6 months transformed the galaxy in ways no one had predicted. The Galactic Engineering Consortium operated from a newly constructed station that orbited neutral space. Helen stood in the main briefing room surrounded by mixed teams of humans and aliens working at collaborative stations. The noise level reminded her of university engineering labs during finals week. Director Helen, we need your approval on the medical scanner redesign, called out a young engineer from Rilla's species. His name was Kip, and he had initially been terrified of working with humans. Now he regularly argued with Rachel about optimal circuit configurations. Helen reviewed the holographic display showing a diagnostic device that combined human pattern recognition software with alien bioscanning hardware. "Approve it," she said, "but run 3 more field tests before mass production." David entered the briefing room looking tired, but satisfied. His role as Earth's chief technology ambassador kept him traveling between systems. "How many projects are active?" he asked. 47 completed and approved for distribution," Helen replied. "Another 80 in various testing phases." She pulled up summary data. "Medical technology is seeing the biggest improvements. Turns out human diagnostic speed combined with alien biological knowledge is incredibly effective." A group of engineers gathered around a workstation erupted in cheers. Paul was in the center of the celebration. "We did it," he announced. "The new propulsion system passed all safety tests." He activated a display showing a hybrid engine design. Human combustion efficiency principles merged with alien gravity manipulation. We're seeing fuel efficiency improvements of 230%. Boris entered carrying data chips. "Military applications report," he said. He didn't look happy. "2 species are requesting weapons technology that exceeds consortium guidelines." "Denied," David said immediately. "We're not in the business of creating super weapons." He looked at Boris. "What did you tell them?" "That the consortium focuses on defensive and civilian applications," Boris replied. "They weren't pleased, but they accepted it." He grinned slightly. "I may have mentioned that humans get very uncomfortable when asked to build weapons of mass destruction." A commotion at the entrance drew everyone's attention. Gorath arrived with a delegation of his people. He was carrying a prototype weapon. "I need human eyes on this," he announced. He set the weapon on a workstation. "My team designed it incorporating both our strengths." Helen examined the design. It was elegant. Gorath's species provided the advanced plasma generation. Human engineering contributed efficient power management and targeting systems. "This is beautiful work," she said genuinely. Efficiency rating. 140% improvement over my original design, Gorath said. There was pride in his voice, but also humility. "It took my team 3 months, 600 years to reach our peak, 3 months to exceed it by working with humans." "You exceeded it by questioning your assumptions," Helen corrected. "We just asked the questions." Rilla arrived with her own delegation. "The Agricultural Consortium wants to share preliminary results," she announced. A holographic display showed. Crop yield data. Human crop rotation philosophy combined with our soil enhancement biology is producing yields 300% above baseline. Dulnar's voice came through the communication system. "Director Helen, we have a situation." His tone was urgent. 2 species are requesting consortium membership. Both were previously isolationist. Helen activated the main display. "Put them through," she said. 2 alien representatives appeared on screen. Neither species had any prior contact with humans. "We have observed the consortium's achievements," one representative said. "We wish to contribute our knowledge of energy systems," the other added. "And we have questions about many of our technologies we have never thought to ask." David stepped forward. "Membership requires full transparency," he said. "All research shared freely, all benefits distributed equally, no hidden programs." "We understand," the first representative replied. "We have wasted centuries protecting knowledge that should have been advancing." He gestured to data scrolling behind him. "Our energy systems are inefficient by 40% compared to consortium standards. We need your help to improve them." "You'll have it," Helen promised. "Send your specifications. We'll have human and alien engineering teams review them within a week." After the communication ended, Rachel approached David. "Did we just recruit 2 more species by accident?" she asked. "Not by accident," David replied. "By example." He pulled up galactic-wide statistics. Technological advancement rates have increased by 600% across all consortium member species. Conflict rates are down 30%. Trade agreements have doubled. He looked at his team. We're proving that cooperation produces better results than competition. Gorath was working with a human engineer named Amy on weapons safety protocols. They were arguing good-naturedly about fail-safe mechanisms. Humans are obsessed with redundant safety systems, Gorath complained. Because we've learned what happens when safety systems fail, Amy countered. Your species had the luxury of slow, careful development. We had 2 world wars that taught us hard lessons. Fair point, Gorath conceded. He added 3 more safety layers to his design. Helen received a communication from Earth. She opened it privately. Her family's faces appeared on screen. They were celebrating her promotion and the consortium's success. She smiled and sent a reply promising to visit soon. The briefing room gradually emptied as teams completed their daily work. David and Helen remained reviewing long-term projections. The council wants an assessment, David said. They're asking if this model is sustainable. Look at the data, Helen replied. Invention rates are exponential. Cooperation produces synergies we never predicted. She pulled up a chart showing technology development curves. At this rate, we'll advance more in the next decade than the galaxy did in the previous century. Boris joined them holding 3 cups of terrible station coffee. To the humans who accidentally revolutionized galactic society, he said, raising his cup. We didn't revolutionize anything, Helen protested. We just asked why things were done certain ways. That's exactly what revolutionized everything, David said. He raised his own cup. To questioning assumptions. They drank the awful coffee in companionable silence. Outside the viewports, ships from dozens of species came and went. Engineers and scientists mixing freely, knowledge flowing without barriers. Helen thought back to that first demonstration 6 months ago. Gorath concealing his weapons technology. Human team working through the night. The shocked faces of aliens who never imagined anyone could improve 6 centuries of research overnight. They concealed their weapons to maintain advantage, she said quietly. We perfected them to prove a point. She looked at David and Boris. Then we taught each other that there's no advantage in going alone. David nodded. Humanity's greatest weapon was never technology, he said. It was our willingness to share it. New teams would arrive tomorrow. New technologies would be reviewed. New questions would be asked. The Galactic Engineering Consortium would continue its work, proving that innovation thrives on cooperation. Helen saved her reports and stood. Same time tomorrow, she asked. Same time, David confirmed. We have a galaxy to help improve. They left the briefing room. Behind them, workstations displayed dozens of ongoing projects, each one a collaboration between species that had once hoarded knowledge, each one proof that asking questions produced better answers than guarding secrets. The revolution hadn't come from weapons or warfare. It came from humans who looked at advanced technology and simply asked if it could be better. That single question changed everything.